How you doing, boys and girls? Mr. Resch back here with your lesson for the day. Today, for check-in, I'm going to have you look at this picture here. I want you to think about what this 1837 invention is and how it changed America. Was it positive or was it negative? In our last class, we looked at a Bill Gates quote. He said, if you go back to 1800, everybody was poor. I mean everybody. The Industrial Revolution kicked in and a lot of countries benefited, but by no means everyone. How was that positive? How was that negative? Okay, I think here are some obvious ways about that. What he said. Positive. Number one, the Industrial Revolution, everybody was poor before it. Afterwards, things would change. Countries benefited. We don't know which ones, but we clearly do know that England and the United States would benefit from these at some point in some ways. Negative. Not everybody benefited, and some countries were left out. So there was some exclusion there. Here's our daily news. In your last class, I wanted you to identify positive and negative impacts using document 15. We did this together in the video because it was rather long. After that, I wanted to give you some extra time to analyze documents 1 through 9 on your own as needed and continue to think about which side you would support in the essay that you will write later this week. Today, I'm going to briefly review document 15 before I have you look at documents 10 through 12. We are getting dangerously close to the end of our analysis here of our 15 to 18 documents. So please continue to think about what stance you're going to take on this very question. Was the Industrial Revolution a more positive or a more negative time in U.S. history? Let's go back and review document 15 very quickly. All right, the document was called Women and Children by Robert Hessen, Child Labor in the Industrial Revolution. I attempted to get you to understand that the factory system gave thousands of children a way to survive, and it raised the standard of living. We found that death rates fell and infant mortality rate fell. So in other words, kids were dying at a lower rate than before. It was 75% were dying before the age of 5, and then it would drop down to about 35. Okay? We know that there was a population explosion, so people lived longer and they weren't dying. We know the negative is that when population increases, there's increased competition. That's basic resource needs. We know that life before the Industrial Revolution was what we called the cottage industry, and it was super poor because the cottages were poorly constructed, poorly lit, and badly ventilated. Before the revolution as well, there was a boring or drab or meager diet. Finally, we talked about how wages earned were more than they could earn elsewhere. So even though the work might have been poor in the factories, it was better than what they had before on the farm. And factories gave women more to cook than before the factories. Okay? Another negative we pointed out is that it was recognized that wages were still low. Okay, there's our quick review of document 15. In today's lesson, I want you to jump into the DBQ folder. Make sure that you jump in and open up your packet and go to documents 10, 11, and 12, that section. And be sure to write down some positive and negative impacts that you observe or you read. I want to remind you that in our last class, I wanted you to practice with me, showing me how you use evidence to support a claim. Okay? You could have chosen the positive or the negative side, but I need you to go back and make sure that you have this practice submitted. Okay, let's look at Doc 10, 11, and 12 briefly. In document 10, we've got this great big old guy, and we've got kids pulling the chariot. Please analyze this for its positive and negative impacts on the Industrial Revolution and on America. In document 11, we have a short excerpt from the conditions of the working class in England from 1844. Please read this and mark positive and negative impacts. Finally, we have document 12. We have Henry Ford here standing next to one of his Model T automobiles in 1925. What do you think is positive and negative here? Okay. In our next class, I will go through documents 10, 11, and 12 in brief and review those with you for the positive and negative benefits. Good luck, boys and girls. Take care and be ready. Be safe.